So it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker in kind of in the theme of learning about and immersing ourselves a bit in the state, beautiful state in which we're having our meeting. We're going to learn a little bit more about Iowa. And I think it's the presentation that Kathy is going to give really fits in very, very well with the strategic planning discussion that we just had. So Kathy Leggett is the Future Ready Iowa Policy Advisor at the Iowa Workforce Development. Is that the agency? This is her third year in this position. Her role involves coordinating Future Ready Iowa efforts among multiple partnerships at the state, regional, and community levels. Future Ready Iowa is one of Governor Reynolds' priorities and focuses on better aligning education and the workforce to help build a strong, skilled workforce that provides opportunities for all Iowans. The goal of the organization is that 70% of Iowans obtain education or training beyond high school by 2025. And I'll just disclosure here. Before this job with MHEC, I was an advisor to the Lumina Foundation working on attainment, and I remember hearing quite a bit about this Future Ready Iowa initiative and how they were trying to align their efforts across the state to focus on attainment, which is and trying to prepare students for education beyond high school. Kathy has previously worked for 20 years at Blank Children's Hospital, and apparently that's how she knew Nancy and others here. And she has a master's degree from the University of Northern Iowa in health education and a master's in public administration from Drake University. Welcome, Kathy.
Thank you. Okay, I want to make sure everybody can hear me okay? Great. I want to make sure, are my slides, do I just do just the arrows and we'll be ready to go? Okay, awesome. Thank you. Well, I want to thank you for staying and listening to me. And I just want to say I loved hearing the strategic planning discussion. It was refreshing and it was so needed. So I'm thankful that I got to hear part of that because you talked on so many things that I work with day to day with Future Ready Iowa. I also do talk fast. So I like to always give that precursor, so just back me up if you need anything. And we'll give you hopefully a lot of information and some great examples that I think are really awesome. I feel really privileged to have the job as Future Ready Iowa Policy Advisor, and as Susan shared, I house at Iowa Workforce Development. But I'll share that this is really an initiative. This is, it's not an Iowa Workforce Development Program, and Future Ready Iowa is not a program. It is an initiative across the state and many stakeholders. And just everything I do, I'll talk about some things I think really are relevant to the conversation you were having, but every time I talk about Future Ready Iowa, I first give a high-level overview so that people can get the gist of what Future Ready Iowa is. So as was mentioned, 70% of the workforce having education and training beyond high school is the goal of Future Ready Iowa by 2025. However, we have a very high priority focus on what you were talking about, post-secondary, right out of high school. What are we doing K-12? Because we'll get to 2025, but this needs to extend beyond that and really encompass our future direction. So in 2017, the governor appointed an alliance that represented all the stakeholders that are listed up here. And they spent about 10 months with Lumina Foundation funding working on how are we going to get to 70%? Looking at state research, looking at other states, programs that were done in other places, what are we going to do? And then they came with 5 recommendations, which we now say are strategies for Future Ready Iowa. And I'm going to go through those really quickly. But this really was a very much multi-stakeholder group to try and get to this. And I must say that we have had really great support from the state legislature since Future Ready Iowa inception with the programs and funding, which you'll see. So a few things that I just wanted to point out that are also very high priority for Future Ready Iowa is to better align education with the workforce, to accelerate opportunities in some instances because we have people who need to get trained quicker, and so how do we do that? And to address barriers, which are things that I heard you already talking about. We have a huge focus on that. I always want to give people a few reasons of why Future Ready Iowa, the why behind why this is important. One is because we know that, and this probably needs to be updated, but it's projected that 68% of the jobs here in Iowa will require education and training beyond high school by 2025. Also, we have a very middle skills job gap. I hate the term middle skills. It's what it is. I advocated to change it, but people know middle skills. This is people with education and training up to an associate's degree, up to a 2-year degree. Here in Iowa, we have a huge gap in that area. And so we want to try and address that. So we do have a high priority on that for Future Ready Iowa. What you can see here is, is that at the time this was done, 53% of our jobs in Iowa required education and training up to a 2-year degree. And we had 34% of our workforce that had that. So we have a huge focus on trying to flip from the jobs that require a high school degree or not a high school degree to get some education and training up to that 2-year degree so we can fill those high demand jobs that we have. Now we certainly have high demand jobs that require 4-year degrees and beyond, as I heard you discussing too, school teachers being one of them, which we're trying to work on how can we work together public-private to address that. And then another reason for Future Ready Iowa is that Iowa Workforce Development surveys the employers every year, and every year consistently they tell us that they have applicants, but the applicants lack the qualifications that they need. So that goes to our aligning education and the workforce and what strategies can we use to bring that together, because we want to get them employed and we want to meet that employer demand for employees. So 70%, again, when this started, when I started working in 2018 on this, that was 139,000 people in Iowa that we needed to get education and training in addition to high school in order to meet our goal. And our primary audience for this is adults. It's adults who are already working, who are out of school, and need to get trained to keep their jobs or to meet those demands of employers in the future. So our biggest population, we have a population of ones that we'd like to go get back to school because they started, whether it was 4-year, 2-year, or whatever, and then whatever happened and they didn't complete. So how could we get them back? And also looking at our outcoming high school graduates. Where are we now? 60.2. So we have made some progress, we're waiting. There's been a few other things going on in the governor's office, if you can imagine. So we're waiting for her to announce our new attainment goal. It did go up, or our new number. It did go up, but we're waiting for that announcement. So we're headed in the right direction. And we do count trade certificates, vocational training, associate's degree, undergraduate, and postgraduate degrees towards our attainment goal. So strategies, really quickly, because I want you to know what makes this up. This strategy, I call, it's align and expand ecosystem of support. I call it wraparound services. This is the one where we have to identify those barriers and see what we can do to help people. What are the barriers to them getting education and training? What are the reasons they started and they stopped? Can we help, can we get them back and support them in that way? So in our realm, this comes to a lot of transportation in Iowa, huge barrier, childcare. That's our #1 economic recovery priority right now. It can be clothing, tuition, hotspots for internet access. We provide haircuts for people. I mean, with funding, all those type of things that are barriers. So what are they, and how can we better help people address those? This is our focus on work-based learning across K all the way through post-secondary, trying to get our Iowans on the job, hands-on, so that they can build those skills that they learn about when they're in the classroom. I heard you talk a lot about keeping people here, and in rural areas, how do we keep people? We have some tremendous programs going, although the challenge is that it's really still a small amount of kids who get access to it, and we really need to get it out there, but who are doing this work-based learning, earning college credit, and learning what are these businesses in their towns and in their region, what do these people do, and then getting connected with them and finding a path in their own community or in their own region and staying. And so that is hugely important in that connection to getting those students out there. Now, we also have a really big priority on registered apprenticeships. And what I want to do is, and I'll show you some examples that we have, is this is not outside of 2-year and 4-year college deal. This is a great opportunity, and we've seen a lot of our educators here, institutions here, take advantage of that. And plus, there's so many things about registered apprenticeship. #1, I mentioned adults being our biggest audience that we need to educate. Well, through a registered apprenticeship, they can get connected with a community college or a four-year college, and then that opens the door for them to see what's there. And some of our programs have associate's degrees earned with them, others have credentials. So it opens the door to something that somebody may have never thought they could even step in when we have these partnerships. So registered apprenticeship's a big focus for us, and also we have a lot of our community colleges working with us because we're establishing registered apprenticeships in high school. We have 53 high schools now in Iowa with registered apprenticeships. The kids can start at the age of 16. Our goal is to grow that tremendously because it's another path. And so it's not one's good and one's bad, it's what are all those great opportunities and paths, and really let's make sure it's lifelong learning. So maybe you get a credential here, and then maybe a few years later you're going back to get your bachelor's degree because you found what you want and the company's going to help you do that. So it's not a one or none or only one, and that's really the conversation we want to have. Strategy 5 is that this is at a grassroots level. This, we can do things at the state to help and to provide funding resources, technical resources, but what this area of the state needs and this area of the state needs is not the same, even when it comes to this. So how do we get the stakeholders in those areas together to say, here's our workforce needs, here's what we have for education, how do we do this, and we meet and address the barriers of the people in our area so that we can employ them and they can have successful, great careers right here in Iowa. So strategy number 1, well, it doesn't say number 1, but it is the funding. And I always in my thing, I do funding last because when I do a regular group, they only think funding and then they don't listen to anything else I say. So I always want to say the other things first because they're really important. But funding, originally with Future Ready Iowa, there were several recommendations in the from the Alliance that went to the legislature to fund these type of opportunities for Iowa public-private educational partnerships. So we do have a last dollar scholarship, and that was Tennessee, maybe it was taken from or something like that. But anyway, we have a last dollar scholarship. That's our largest funding. We did have a Future Ready Iowa grant program, and this was to help people who had 2 years of a bachelor's degree come back and finish that bachelor's degree with some support. Now, I'm sad to say that the way that was structured, it didn't really do what I think it was intended to do. So that funding was zeroed out. I would like us to have the chance to go back and broaden and maybe see some different ways that we can do that because we certainly have teachers, some other human services, many other things that healthcare that could benefit from that. We have an employer innovation fund, and I'm going to talk about that. Those and I have on here, and this will get shared, just the amounts. We also have a dual credit summer enrollment program so that kids can go to school and get dual credit in the summer. And we have a lot of kids doing that in healthcare, especially right now, which is really awesome. It right now is appropriated $600,000, not enough. I mean, it's gone in a second. So hopefully that can grow. We have a summer youth internship pilot project program, which funds organizations and partnerships to do paid internships for youth, especially youth at risk, but also they do career counseling, they do wraparound services, they do all of that. We actually funded 24 projects this summer. We only appropriated $250,000 for that, but because of COVID, our agency put forth more money towards that because they had missed opportunities in school, and so we actually doing $1.6 million this summer in 24 projects with youth, and I have some examples of that too. Our last dollar scholarship is, this just has some information, but one thing I wanted to point out is it's not income means tested, and I believe that's an advantage. And the reason I think that is because I think that we have adults who are working and make too much money in the job that they're currently doing to be able to say, I'm going to afford to go back and get an associate's degree or an up to a 2-year credential, but they need that for their future, or it gives them an option to get out of a job that they're in and get into a growing career. So I think it affords that. I also think that there are students who go to enroll and whose parents make too much money, but they maybe have other issues. I mean, I had a child with chronic health conditions, so my salary is okay, but I have a ton of money going out in medical. I couldn't afford to, so that type of situation that still affords the opportunity for people to get tuition up to a 2-year degree in our high demand jobs. There's a list of eligible programs. Every community college participates. We have a lot of opportunities, and then our workforce board now is in the process of reviewing those for the school year starting 2022. What are going to be the eligible occupations, and then we'll get the programs associated with them. So just to give you a few numbers, fiscal year 20, We had a little over 6,500, and it was about 14,000 in scholarships that were provided. 21, this is only 3 of 6 reporting terms, so it's early spring, goes through early spring. We've had 7,689, 17 million, and then we have an appropriation this year of, it's on there somewhere, I think it's 23 million. So it's around 23 million. The legislature increased it by 10 million this past year because this program is going very well. And then we're following the folks who complete and the ones who continue in it and all of that, and getting some really good data from it. And then I just put up here, we have 15 community colleges in the Last Dollar Scholarship. We have 2 private healthcare colleges who are getting, who have eligible students with the Last Dollar Scholarship. And then the Employer Innovation Fund, really quickly, it's a match. It's a public-private match. And so what we do is we take applications from proposals, and regions or organizations or community colleges or regions, universities, they can put a proposal together. They have to be working with an employer. That's a requirement because it's the Employer Innovation Fund, and we want to bring that education workforce thing together. So they have to have an employer partner who's active, but and then they have to put up a private match. So private match dollars up to 50,000. They can request up to 50,000. Then they have to do their private match of 50,000. We can't match state or federal dollars, so it has to come from an employer or from grants, gifts, foundations, those type of things. But they make the application, and then we have a review period, and we award what we can. And so they spend their 50,000 first, their private match, and then they send that in to us and show that they've done it, and then the state sends them their match. And we've been able to do it 1-to-1 right now. So if they do 50,000 and get approved for that, then they'll get 50,000 from the state to finish the project. So this has been, we had 1.2 million the first year, and we gave it all. And this year we were awarded 4.2 million. Well, hopefully if the governor signs it. I'm not sure she signed it yet. Fingers crossed. But anyway, but now it's split between Employer Innovation Fund and a Child Care Challenge, which I won't spend too much time on, but because child care is such a big issue, we're doing some other things to try and address that in the state. But anyway, employer innovation projects, I wanted to talk about a couple. We have several with partnership with community college and our regions. DMAC with Ruan was one of our first ones. Ruan identifying employees they had that did not have any post-secondary education to work in their transportation logistics area and work with DMAC to get that training. Central College with Pella School District and multiple employers have worked actually on a registered apprenticeship program that they support, and then they award college credit for that too, and there's a path for them to get their registered apprenticeship and associate's degree, and a path for them to get a 4-year degree and keep going in that direction. Muscatine United Way partnered with a community college in their area. It was really awesome because what they did is they worked it so the community college would do a 6-week training program in CNA or welding or CNC, and the United Way took the families that whose kids get free backpacks, and they targeted those families for the kindergarten families and said, if you want to enroll in this, we will pay for your child care, your transportation, and give you a stipend so you can have 6 weeks to get this training done and get with an employer to get a better opportunity. And they did that because they reduced the risk that something was going to get in the way of those parents completing. That's why they did it so accelerated, so short, and provided those. Because the longer it goes, then the more likelihood, you hit some healthcare issue or a job issue or a transportation issue, and then it stops. So that's a really awesome program that happened as well and is still happening. Summer Youth Internship, this one we have now. We have Iowa Lakes Community College with multiple employers in the area doing 60 kids. And then Northwest Iowa Community College, 25 kids with the Summer Youth Internship. University of Northern Iowa and Central College were also funded for their programs in partnership with employers. And then I wanted to talk about what we did during the coronavirus with some of those funds, because as you talked about, the virus made you kind of push the door open for things that maybe we'd talked about a long time but hadn't done, and showed people what could really be done. And I am still amazed, and I'm working on the reporting of all of these projects for us to share big and broad, because what Iowans did, employers, educational institutes, I think what was amazing. We gave 4 opportunities for funding last fall, and these all happened not even with this much time, but the first one started August 26th, and we gave the funding through August 25th and through November 2nd, and most of them had until February 28th to actually get their people enrolled or completed, and they only had until the end of December to spend their funds. And even though it got expended by the federal government, we didn't do that. We had them spend their funds. We gave them an extra 15 days in January to get everything spent. So some of the things that happened, we have Metro Pavers and Proto, which are both in the Cedar Rapids area. And this wasn't even the way they started the project, but they ended up working with Kirkwood Community College because what they were trying to accomplish, that's what made sense. Proto is they do obviously towing all over, and they are in dire need of CDL, all the people who can drive those, and they pay great. They're a good company, and now they have a great partnership with Kirkwood where they go in and they talk to their classes, and they have built some training with the equipment that they have where they have so they can get some hands-on. So that happened. Metro Pavers actually, this was off of shoot of the summer youth internship. Metro Pavers actually could do theirs last year. They did their summer youth internship where they had people come in and go through their employee orientation. Students learned. They actually offered full-time jobs to 2 students. One took one, the other one had to stay home with their family members, so they couldn't. But from that, they created a registered apprenticeship in concrete with Kirkwood. So these are just great examples of what things that are happening kind of in line with what you're talking about. University of Iowa got an innovation grant to do some really accelerated training through their labor center. Clark University in Dubuque did micro-credentials for what their employers said, we have these topics that people we want to hire need to know, so they did micro-credentials for those individuals. I think their goal was 60 people, and I think they did 40. It was a chat, because it was a new venture for them to, how do we get these people? How do we, so we helped them try to advertise and get that out. Iowa Lakes Community College did 100 people in 100 days for credential training that employers in the area needed. The United Way of Storey County did, again, wraparound services and transportation and everything for 3 different programs. Again, CNA, welding, and I can't remember the other one for folks with barriers there, and got many of them trained, credentialed, and jobs. So it was fantastic. And registered apprenticeships, we did a registered apprenticeship grant incentive for small businesses in the high schools. And we had 12 high schools that participated. We had a lot of other small businesses, but 12 high schools did that. We also did a registered apprenticeship incentive for post-secondary institutions in healthcare. We had 10 community colleges who applied and received funding to establish new registered apprenticeship programs. And the U of I, Central College, and William Penn did set up registered apprenticeship programs that align with their programs. In our Earn and Learn, we did the University of Iowa REACH program. They were able to train some of their students with disabilities. And Country Meats, we need meat cutting. We need meat cutting in Iowa. We need those type of things, and so they were able to work with Iowa State University to do a registered apprenticeship program. So those were just some of the things that brief examples of the things that are happening when people just have the opportunity to, sometimes, as you said, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but they learn from it, and then hopefully we evolve from there. But to try these things to meet the needs and everything that we've talked about, that you talked about. So where are we now? We're hopefully back on the road. COVID, of course, made us take a pause in that. We like to get out. Future Ready Iowa, I usually travel 2 to 3 days a week before COVID because, again, the area, the communities have to do this. And then we say, how can we help? And so we did. The fall before COVID, we did 34 regional summits. We're setting a goal to do workforce summits focused on recovery, work-based learning, and childcare. And we go to a lot of our employers. They host us. We're going to be reaching out to every community college to see if they'll host us this year to do like 2 hours in the morning. That's the best time to do it, that you get your stakeholders and talk about what's available. So we're hoping to do more than 40 this fall. We're starting to plan those now. A new round of innovation funding will be opening up, hopefully, fingers crossed, if that is all signed and good to go. So we'll be working with people. And the other thing is a lot of what I do is see this part and say, hey, can you guys get together and talk about what you could do and apply for an innovation fund? Because sometimes they're not thinking, so that's a lot of. We want people to be successful, and sometimes it just takes that kind of putting together, brainstorming, and helping them. And then I'll help them do anything in a grant I'll help them get on and log in, figure out how to do it. As long as they know, it doesn't mean they're getting funded, and I tell them that every time, but we want people to be successful, and this isn't. Sometimes the people you're working with don't do this, so you don't want that to be a barrier. We did make a lot of requests to the governor's office for workforce ARP opportunities for that funding that's coming from the federal government. If we get that, to do some hopefully more innovative things to fund public-private partnerships and other things in the state. So we're waiting to hear, and if that happens, we'll get on that. So that's it. Quickly, yeah. So I think I'm open for comments or anything. I hope I gave you just a little bit. I can share more specific information, but I just wanted to give you the thrust of some of the things that are happening here, so.
So I have a quick question.
Sure.
Great job of just, outlining the whole spectrum of partnerships in place across business community and schools and nonprofits. Is there a way for you to kind of boil down to maybe like the top 2 or 3, I guess, on one hand, what are the most in-demand jobs at this point in time in Iowa? And then what are the top maybe 2 or 3 most popular fields that you see recipients actually, trying to get into?
Yeah, sure. So it depends too on whether you're talking about a 4-credit program or a non-credit program. Just because our last dollar scholarship only does 4-credit programs because they apply Pell first, and then the last dollar scholarship comes in. So our Innovation Fund does a lot of our non-credit programs like our CNA. So I will tell you right now, CMA is very high demand. RN is the #1, and it continues to be the #1 in Iowa, and that's where the most of our funding for the last dollar scholarship right now has gone to those taking RN training. And it is our #1 job. It remains #1. And so I'm really encouraging, I really would like to see partnerships do something to think outside of the box about how we can get more RNs trained in Iowa, because that's not going away, and we need to accelerate that process for some people. So can we do it differently? We did have, Indian Hills, I think, did the registered apprenticeship for LPN program to do that as a registered apprenticeship, but it's still kind of the same format. And so anyway, so RN, we have a lot of IT, lots of IT opening. Welding continues to be the trades, welding, plumbing, HVAC, continue to be very high demand. Also on the other side, CDL is always at the very top. Lots of heavy equipment, that type of thing. Those would be kind of the biggest ones, I think, right now. A lot of healthcare, CNA, CMA, RN, technicians. And on the funding side, I would say it kind of falls in line with that. We have a lot of people doing the CNA as a registered apprenticeship, CMA as a registered apprenticeship, the long-term care, just even in long-term care, that's been a huge, and I wish I could share, because I just added up what our CNA, what we funded, millions of dollars. We funded millions of dollars through these grants for training for those programs. And then, like I said, IT is pretty high. Help desk is one of our high demand. Yeah. I'm not so sure that so many people are taking training for that, but it is one of our high demand jobs for sure. So. Thank you. Yes.
I think Blake had a question over here.
Thank you. In Kansas, I'm with the Board of Regents, so we increased the number of slots in our nursing programs by 250. So we could send you what we did.
That would be
great.
Yeah.
My question is on the data.
Yes.
So what data source are you using for industry recognized credentials to see how many of Iowans have that?
For that attainment level?
Correct.
Yeah, so this is always kind of but it's like a thing that needs to be explained, so I appreciate the question. We do a labor shed survey. Our labor market division does a survey across Iowa, and that's what we use, rather than the other one that I'm not gonna know the name of, but that a lot of people across the nation, because we're unique. I don't know if there is another state that does that, and we actually just started doing it in the last year in every county. So we get survey data from every county, and so we talk to the people. They're called, they're asked a number of questions, and they include, do you have any type of certification? Has that certification helped you get a better job or a higher wage? So I don't know all the questions, and I can connect you with our labor market folks, but that's where we get that from.
Thank you.
Yes.
Kathy, I was just going to just quickly say, if you have a link, to whatever, to that, you could just provide it to us, and then we'll make it available to everybody who might be interested, because that has been a tough nut to crack, is figuring out
and if
the data on that.
Yeah, so like if you have that written down, since I don't have notes, and if you can just help me remember, anything, because I'm happy to share anything and give links,
Thanks.
So I appreciate a reminder, though.
Other questions? Barbara? Yeah.
Thank you. Just quick, how many counties do you have in Iowa?
99. A lot. We have a lot of counties.
I was asking, we have 105.
Okay.
But that's close enough, because I was wondering, was it smaller? So with 99, 105 is doable.
And then I can connect you with how they're doing that. And they've actually they did one half of the state one year, and then the other half the next year, just for funding purposes. So we're actually getting ready. COVID, as you know, put us on everything, so but getting ready to be able to show those attainment in every county data. So.
If I might just follow,
Sure.
how long is that survey? Is it a long one? You said on your phone, you call, right? And so people don't want to be hung up too long. So how long might it be?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll have to find out from LMRI folks. But easy to answer. Yeah, for sure. And I'm sure they'll share whatever they do. They'll probably share the whole survey. So
Thank you.
Yeah.
Olivia?
Kathy, great presentation.
Thank you.
You do talk fast.
I do.
But I understood everything you said.
Thank you. Good.
I would like to, given that there appears to be a gap between the qualified workers, I'll just say, or people with the credentials, and the jobs that are out here in the state, is there an impact of out-of-state workers coming in to fill the void?
Not that I'm aware of. And now, I wouldn't be the expert on that, but I don't see that happening. Unfortunately, I don't think Iowa is the we want to go there capital of the world. And so now the people don't know what they're missing. That's the thing. They don't know what they're missing. But not that I'm aware of. And so, one of the things that I thought was really interesting, and this came from a group in Pella, and it was actually the president of the college there, and I'm not going to say it exactly right, but I've used this at a lot of different places of groups trying to get them together, is to say, okay, let's imagine that you don't have the opportunity to recruit people to your community. So, but you have these jobs, these education needs, and you have these people. How hard would you work, and what would you do differently to make this all work? And I feel like that is just a really good way to perspective to look at what we want to try and support people in doing in their community. Because sometimes I think that is, let's bring people in or let's recruit at the college, which is great, but sometimes you have a whole bunch of people who just for whatever reasons aren't engaged in those great career opportunities, and I really want people to get engaged in those great career opportunities, so. Yes.
Hey, Ken, could you put your microphone on? I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Sorry about that. So I just wanted to make sure I heard you correctly. Through the survey of the 99 counties, do you have a list of sort of recognized or promoted industry certifications that would qualify for the funding? Is that what?
For the Last Dollar Scholarship?
Yes.
Okay, so that doesn't go by county. That actually goes by state. So what happens, and this is it's either in the rules or the way the legislation was passed. For the Last Dollar Scholarship, our state workforce board, what our LMI division prepares a document that shows all of the occupations, and the ones that have a certain percent of growth projected over the next 10 years, a certain number of openings every year in Iowa, and a minimum wage, starting wage without experience of $14 an hour. And so then we take that list, and the board looks at that list and then decides what the Last Dollar Scholarship is going to fund. And then we articulate every community college program that meets that to that occupation. So we have numerous. So, so we have that, but then regionally, Each community college can choose 5 additional occupations to meet their regional needs that maybe didn't make it on the state list, but they really need a lot of this in this area of the state, and then those are on the list. So then, yes, you can go to our website and you can look at each community college and or the 2 private. We have Mercy and St. Luke's that do healthcare, and you can see every program that you can get a last dollar scholarship for.
Okay, so I thought you mentioned something about recognized industry certifications, but maybe I misheard that.
I don't know. If I did, does anybody remember? No.
Well, on the non-credit side, the reason why in Indiana we have something similar to that, and it results in a recognized industry certification. I think, Blake, you have something like that in Kansas too that we've shared information on, and that's...
Yeah, we do. So our non-credit side, typically we don't have a official funding source of that. So those applications would come in through the Innovation Fund, and so an employer working with a educational institute or whoever is going to say, we want to do this, and it's going to result in this credential. So if the employer is okay, you know, if that's training them for what they want, then if they had a good application, it would probably get funded.
And one other question, do you use career exploration software and career coaching?
Career
Does that
coach.
fit into this?
Career coach, we have career coach here in Iowa. Now, every school in Iowa has the ability, every district, to choose their own, like what they're using through middle school and high school and those type of things. For Future Ready Iowa, we host on our website, Iowa Career Coach. And so we use that at our Iowa Work Centers, our America Job Centers across the state. And then that is linked to, you know, where you can go and see in the region in Iowa, what's the growth, how much am I going to make, where are the schools that I can go to, that type of thing. We've tried to find a way to work with them to put on there to indicate that's a last dollar scholarship opportunity as well, but that hasn't quite come to fruition. So
I want to go to the folks that are participating virtually. Is there anybody watching online that has any questions? I want to be mindful of you folks as well. Okay. Anyone else in our audience here that have any questions or comments? No? Okay. Olivia, if I could, well, first let's give Kathy a hand. That was really great information. Thank you.